You're listening to The Parallel Paths, a podcast designed to elevate your mind, body, and spirit so that you can get everything you want out of life. The only question is, are you ready? Welcome back to the Parallel Paths podcast. I'm your co-host, Makita Moore.
And I'm your co-host, Blair McClendon.
Yes, and we are back again for our second episode. And this episode, we are going to be talking about emotional intelligence. And originally, it was going to be all about men and their emotions.
It was, but I had to step up and say, hey, there's some women out there lacking emotional intelligence too. It's not a one-sided thing. So let's make this an equal playing field.
Yes, this will be all encompassing about emotions. What is emotional intelligence? Like, what does that mean to us? How does that affect us in our lives and how we interact with one another? What are some things that we can do to enhance our emotional intelligence? So that's what we'll cover in this episode. Yeah. So, and this was sparked this idea of this episode was sparked from our last episode on meditation. And Blair, I know you mentioned that just through meditation, you felt like you were able to enhance your emotional intelligence. So we'll definitely dive more into that once we go more in depth. But from your understanding, Blair, how do you define emotional intelligence?
I should have known you were going to start with that.
I always got to define
Yeah, that's tough for me. Like I would say, I guess just shooting from the cuff, emotional intelligence is being aware of yourself as far as like what's triggering you, whether that's triggering something on a positive spectrum or something on a negative spectrum. Just being aware on every level to how you're reacting to things. Are you letting certain things just go by the wayside? Like, really, I guess just being in tune with your emotions and how you're acting.
Yeah, that's exactly how I would define it. Just that awareness of what emotions am I experiencing, and then having the mental clarity to understand why you're experiencing those emotions, and then to be able to respond in an intelligent manner that, is more beneficial to you rather than just reacting to these emotions. So, um, if you don't know by the definition, emotional intelligence is a super, super important thing, but it's something that a lot of us aren't taught. We're not really taught to really sit there and understand our emotions. We're taught that this emotion is good or this emotion is bad. But when it comes to understanding those emotions and embracing them, that's something that I feel like we really lack in teaching teaching each one another.
Yeah, I agree. Um, we kind of touched on it last week, but with meditation, that's really how I kind of got even halfway aware of emotions and what all that stuff was, aside from heartbreak and all that sort of stuff. But
So
I
let's
guess
let's talk on that though. So when it comes to, what do you think are some causes of us being out of touch with our emotions? And then we could talk about like what kind of brings us more to that awareness of our emotions. Like, why do you feel like we lack this emotional intelligence? Why are we out of touch with it?
I just think as humans, comprehensively, we're out of touch. Period. Like just by societal programming. Like it's not something that we're taught from kindergarten up. Like to be aware of how you're reacting to certain things. Most time, if a kid is acting up or if you're throwing a tantrum, they're just gonna throw you in the corner or send you to the office. Like it's never a diagnosis of what's actually going on. So
Mm-hmm.
you're not necessarily taught how to handle that early, and it just translates and piles on as you get older. So
So what does that look like? So like the fact that we're not taught how to deal with our emotions in your own personal life or in what you observe other people, how does that lack of emotional intelligence like manifest in like our lives?
um I mean, for somebody like myself who just internalized everything, it ended up causing acid reflux, which led to severe stomach cramps, which led to hospitalization. So
Mm.
I mean, it's really how far do you want to go down the rabbit hole? Like, I mean, it can go a million different ways. At the end
Wait,
of the
so talk a little bit, like, because I think like that wasn't what a lot of people would expect to be your manifestation of a lack of emotional intelligence. How do you go from emotion to the physical? You having these like chronic health conditions.
so it kind of on a scientific level, like everybody is different. So for me, just knowing myself now, my stomach is one of my emotional centers. So the stomach being the second brain, if you're constantly internalizing things and you're not expressing yourself, you're eating it. Like it's just internalizing, and it can manifest itself in a number of different ways. But for me, like, I mean, I've looked up different astrology. I've looked up this thing called human design, and so many other things. But everything that kind of points back to anything that I would be suffering from a stress or like an emotional suppression, it would be internalized in my stomach area or my digestive tract. So,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was spot on. And definitely, I guess hindsight being 2020, it's one of those things you can look back and say, me not eating healthy, plus the stress that I was putting on myself from everything else, it definitely was a contributing factor to how I ended up hospitalized, basically.
Mm-hmm. So like, so the important thing is that, we have these emotions, which I think a lot of times we often fail to realize that emotions and well, everything is energy, and emotions are just a different expression of that energy. That the process of these emotions is for them to flow. Emotions bring us information, and when we allow that information to come to us and then allow that emotion then to flow on, we can receive that information and then allow that energy to pass. But when we don't receive and acknowledge our emotions, that energy gets stuck and it gets stored down. And when that energy is stored in your body, then you have physical manifestations. Like for you was the stomach problems. For me, it's chronic fatigue, and chronic, joint pain. So
Mm,
this is just one way that, that lack of emotional um, intelligence can affect us physically. But also, like like the biggest one is how it affects us and how we interact with other people. You
yeah,
know, not being aware of the emotions you're experiencing, you can't really connect to other people, right? Or you might be projecting onto other people, like just you can be talking to someone who might remind you of some old, like you might like either a smell, like a perfume that person's wearing. It could like trigger some emotional response. If you're not aware, you might be projecting on that person and kind of put up like a barrier or a wall with that person, not realizing why. But it's because you've been triggered on this emotional level, but you're not aware to then not allow that wall that's coming up to prevent you from actually having a real interaction with this person in front of you.
for sure. I think just having self awareness, period, when it comes to that is key. Just, um, I guess, speaking from personal experience, I know, let's say, early 20s, definitely wasn't connecting emotionally like that. So, as I started to get more into like the mindfulness practices and stuff like that, you really start to realize, like, oh, okay, A really does equal B. Like, it's certain things that you're doing, even subconsciously, that, like you said, could be projected on the other person, and it's causing them to react a certain way, and then it can create a snowball in either direction. So it's definitely important when you're communicating with a partner or a significant other, just being able to share your feelings with them, allow them to share their feelings as well, but just have everything being reciprocated to where it's on an even playing field. Because one person might be opening up more than the other, and then you're not really knowing how the other person feels. And the mind is a crazy thing. So once you start thinking one thing, I know I've seen it firsthand, but it can go in one complete direction, and it's it appears one way, but it's the complete opposite. So it's one of those things where communication is the key.
Hmm. And you touched on like self-awareness too, where um this level of awareness, it's a I guess you have to have that self-awareness in order to begin to adopt this emotional intelligence. Because once you can sense,
Do
okay, like I'm experiencing this emotion, and this is what it feels like to me, because anger for me might look different than anger for you. Like my anger might be me crying while yours could be you feeling enraged,
right.
whatever. So like you have to kind of know. That's why it takes, practices like you said, like meditation or things, just to become more self-aware, and not let someone else tell you what that emotional expression is supposed to look like,
Yeah.
right? And this is one of the big problems. This is kind of why we came to this topic, was because for Black men in particular, who were taught how to express their emotions, or basically told not to express their emotions. So then they never really build an intimate relationship to understand emotions, to understand, what am I experiencing, why am I experiencing this thing, and how can I express this thing in an adaptive way. You guys don't get a lot of that. I mean, us as females, we don't get as much, but I feel like it's more socially acceptable for us to build a relationship with our emotions and experience the spectrum of emotions, and not just a certain subset of emotions.
Yeah. And I mean, I can even think back to sports. I mean, you can probably even think about it, but like professional athletes get fined for celebrating. Like you can't even show emotion for having a great play. Like, so I mean, right there, that's suppressing emotions. So it's like you're getting attacked from so many different ways that you don't even see, that when it does come down to the time to where you do need to express those emotions, you don't really know how to. So that was actually going to lead me into a question for you. What was one thing that you did, or what's one piece of advice that you would give somebody who is looking to tap into self-awareness or emotional intelligence?
Well, before I do that, because when you were talking about the men, like the football players expressing that emotion, I think one of the reasons why, I'm not sure if y'all can hear Kobe drinking in the background. That's what that sound is. But I think one of the reasons, like historically, it's because, especially for melanated people like us, we are very passionate, powerful people. So when we express our emotions, it is perceived as threatening to a lot of other people. So an expression of joy or excitement or enthusiasm is taken in a negative way, to where that's too aggressive, that's too much. People feel threatened. So that's when they start finding people for being excited, for slamming a ball because they were excited, or for showing like, why are you
Right,
perceiving this thing as threatening? It's just
right.
an emotion. So that, and it goes back to, very early on, we were conditioned not with, like, basically understanding the power of emotion. And we'll talk more about the power of emotion when it comes to like manifesting stuff. But when it comes to us understanding our power and how much power we have in expressing ourselves and tapping into emotions and utilizing that, there's been strategic efforts put in place to take as much power away from us as possible. And a big part of it is emotions. And by putting these chains on people, especially the Black man, about how he's supposed to express his emotions, or the fact that he's not supposed to have emotions, it takes away so much of that man's power, on top of adding in all these layers of dysfunction, and pain that could be avoidable if we just allowed ourselves to fully experience the human experience for what it is.
For sure.
Yeah.
Um, I was gonna say I'm not gonna forget that question, but I think one thing too today, it's not embraced by society to be masculine anymore. So I think that that's
Mm-hmm.
one huge hurdle that we have to overcome 2020 and beyond. It's especially with the Black men, it's been an attack on our masculinity as a whole. Like everything is being pushed um, as like a feminine type of agenda. And as men, you have to embrace that masculine side. And it's, of course, it's a toxic and a positive side to everything. And I know a lot of people will say, "Oh, well, Future makes this toxic masculine music." Yeah, he does, but like you need that balance sometime. Like it's it's okay to embrace that, and I think that's where it goes back to the emotional intelligence. It's like, all right, you can embrace that dark or that shadow side and still have the light too. So again, it kind of goes back to having balance and just self awareness. But if you understand, like, hey, he might be saying something in this verse that I don't necessarily agree with. So I'm not gonna turn around and act and do exactly like what he said, but like you can still enjoy the vibe of it or whatever and still feel that power and not feel bad about it. And I think that's important for men, like not apologizing for being a man at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think that's part of the whole emotional intelligence piece too, is really realizing that you can experience someone else's emotions without feeling like you have to adopt what they're saying or the
Right.
emotion that they're expressing. An important thing is that we all have this masculine feminine energy that we're supposed to keep in balance. So there's times where like I'll be listening to like, nothing but Nipsey, and I'm like, I'm getting a little bit, I have a sense that I need to tap into my more feminine energy.
Yeah.
So I'll put on some India Irie or some Lauren Hill,
Right.
just to balance myself out. But or I'll try to channel more of a sensuality kind of feeling. But that's, you have to kind of know that. You kind of have to know, like, where am I at right now? Is the energy, the whatever on the masculine or feminine side, wherever I am on that balance, is that energy conducive to the environment I'm in? Like while I'm sitting
Right.
here with my niece, what am I going to be more softer, more nurturing, or I mean more directive and authoritative?
Right.
Um, and even I don't even like saying like that either of those are masculine or feminine, because like that's what
Right.
we've been told are masculine and feminine.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's more, you kind of have to sense it, and also it might look different. Like your masculine feminine might look different than another person's masculine feminine.
For sure. And I mean, I think just even touching back on the music, like even me having the balance, like I'm not listening to Future all the time. Like I might throw on some Sade or I might put on Maxwell or whatever, like
Hey.
or some John Coltrane. So like the music spectrum I think is broad, but I think a lot of people kind of limit it to a certain area, especially men. I feel like we might stay in one pocket, like it's not necessarily spread across everything. And I think the music that you listen to definitely plays a balance in your emotional intelligence and then just your balance overall. Like you do need to hear a woman's voice. You need to hear some of the things that they're saying. Like there's certain messages that women can get across to us that men can, and vice versa. So um,
And
I'm gonna
that
go back to it.
for that, I feel like that's why it's so important for us to be in relationships. And I don't necessarily, I mean romantic. I feel like there is the beauty in a monogamous relationship between a man and a woman, where they can find that balance between the like a true divine feminine and that true
Right.
masculine, when they allow themselves to fully be that, because they don't have to put their guard up or feel like they have to take on these roles because of past history, things like that. But I think it's good for us to have that balance. And even in work relationships, like I generally do a lot of work with a lot of men, and it's because I like to have that balance between the masculine and the feminine.
Yeah,
And I think it's good to pursue that in work relationships or other relationships you have.
for sure.
Even though in society we're taught that like, nah, you shouldn't be hanging out with men, you shouldn't be hanging out with women. But it's like, how can we expect to know each other in a romantic relationship if we're not spending time with one another outside of that first?
Yeah, I was gonna say I think it's funny because a lot of times people will say men and women can't be friends, or especially platonic friends, and I beg to disagree. Um, and I mean even you're attractive, but platonic friends. So I mean I have plenty of female friends who are attractive, who it can just solely be friends and that energy be mutual. The feminine
But I
and the
think I think
masculine
that's another
aspect of it,
to
but
have too, though.
yeah, yeah, we can talk more into that. But I just feel like with when are we gonna touch on that? Because I mine's running a little crazy about that one now. But I do think it's possible though, and I think it's important to have a balance in your friends. And I know for me, you just get a certain spark from having feminine energy around. Like it's a whole different perspective than always having the masculine sight. Like women just see things completely different, and you need that nurturing, that essence in your presence.
Hmm. And I think the issue is a lot of times, at least from my own personal experience in relationships, is as a woman, I can sense when the man who I'm around um, is in need of something. However, when I offer, that support or advice or whatever it is, he is so out of touch with his emotions to even understand why I'm even offering something like that. And then I think a
Mm.
part of it's also the pain of, because I think like there's a lack of awareness, but then when someone does something like that, it does bring that awareness, but then it might be too painful or uncomfortable or um, uh, unnatural to kind of go there, to where then it comes off as almost like aggression in that sense.
Yeah.
I think in order for us to continue to evolve together as men and women, both in romantic relationships and platonic relationships, we have to understand that balance within ourselves. And then once we're in the presence of one another, and that's why it's important to have this level of emotional intelligence. That way, when I'm in your presence, I don't have to have a guard up. And if I do have a guard that starts to rise, I can be aware of it and not have to not be so reactive in relation to it. So like I can sense that guard coming up, and that should tune me in. Okay, let me just be present. Because I know once that guard comes up, it's gonna start warping my reality. So if I can
Yeah.
just be present, and tune in and just like observe, then I won't be so affected, by that guard.
Yeah, I think when like you're trying to date too, um, I feel like a lot of people would, I don't know, I don't want to necessarily call it serial dating, but like you just go on multiple dates. Like let's say you're going on the ninth, 10th date and you're still trying to figure out if you like this person. Why is it taking you 10 dates to figure that
Mm.
out? Like that's to me lack of self-awareness and like lack of emotional intelligence, because at least for me, it's got to be a certain chemistry beyond the physical that I feel from day one for me to even entertain something beyond that. So I feel like you kind of have a good feeling, especially within the first 2, 3 times of you hanging out with somebody. Like, is this gonna go one way or is it gonna go the other? But that's having that awareness. That's being able to tap in, like, oh no, this person is really just a friend, or I could see this person being something more, whatever.
And that's something that I feel like I definitely have. That's an area where I lacked emotional intelligence, to where I've had men who pop up later in my life, and be like, years ago, I kind of saw you in this kind of light, and I was like, well, I was completely oblivious to it, or I was just so unaware, just because I couldn't see him recognizing me, because I myself couldn't recognize myself. Like I didn't see, I wasn't self aware enough to see what value this person was finding in me. But as I began to tune into myself with like meditation and stuff, I gained a greater sense of awareness, to where one, I could understand why I wasn't seeing myself the way these other people were seeing me, that I did have like these limiting beliefs about myself. And that I could always challenge that when I would notice, okay, my guard's going up, and I know this isn't gonna give me a true reality of what things really are. So yeah, I've definitely had it in that way. Um, yeah.
So is it a good time to transition into, I guess, some things that you would give people as far as like tips to become more self-aware or develop this emotional intelligence?
Yeah, yeah. We talked enough about the problem. So let's talk some
Yeah.
solutions now. Let's talk some solutions for how can you build emotional intelligence? How can you become more aware of the emotions that you're experiencing, be more accepting of those emotions, and then respond to those emotions in a way that's helpful for you? So, what's one strategy that you use, Blair? Kick us off.
Um, Besides meditation, I would recommend isolating yourself.
Mm.
Sounds kind of crazy, but um, my time of isolation was when I moved to Seattle. I lived in Seattle about a year and a half, and I know a lot of people would ask me like, "Why Seattle?" And if you read the book The Alchemist, um, that was like my version of the pyramids. So after being out there and kind of living through that moment and being able to look back on it, it was my time of isolation. Like I wasn't out there trying to date. It was solely one purpose. Um, and I was really just enjoying the moment and building upon my early stages of entrepreneurship. So I was very focused and just goal oriented while I was out there. Like it wasn't anything except for really like a healing experience too. Like I did a lot of different little healing practices and um, just tapping in for real, like just connecting with nature. I go on a bunch of hikes. Like it was just a nice time, but it was a much needed time away from outside influences, whether
So
that be
like,
friends, family, whatever. Like it's nice to be able to disconnect and like you really kind of just be alone with your thoughts. Like you really get to sort out what you want to do. You get to figure out like who you are. And I know sometimes when people be like, "Oh, I guess you're soul searching." I mean, you're kind of soul searching every day. I mean, like in a sense, like unless you're really in tune with that higher presence and you're constantly in each moment, like you're always searching for that higher connection. So um yeah, I just think that isolation is needed and that once you do take that step of being able to be by yourself, so many things can evolve from that.
so I know a lot of people, especially while we're in quarantine, a lot of people find that isolation like uncomfortable. Um, and I think like, especially right now, and my heart goes out to these generations that are coming up underneath us who've been raised around technology and constant connection to everything. Was it hard for you and did it seem unnatural at first to seek that isolation, or did you kind of like, did it seem like inborn to do it? And when you did it, it felt, 'cause I think you identify as an introvert too, right? Like an introvert, extrovert.
Nah, the Myers Briggs, I actually was an extrovert on there.
Okay.
So I mean it was very close though. It was like almost one of those like 55-45 type things.
Mm-hmm.
So like I can really go either way. It's not that I'm introverted. Um, I've always done a lot of extroverted things, like even growing up, like I was class president. So like you can't necessarily be just an introvert and not talk to anybody, like and be in that type of role. So I would say I've been able to play both sides of it. And I just think me tapping in on a personal level and just kind of listening to my intuition, it was a much needed step on this journey. So it wasn't really a question. Like it that was really something I saw like 3 years before it even happened. Like Seattle was gonna happen.
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't know under those terms of isolation, like just me being by myself, not really trying to date, all that type of stuff. I didn't realize all of that would come into play, but that's what it was.
And I think another aspect, and I'll go into like, some of my solutions for it as well, but you spoke on following your instinct. You listen to your instinct, let you guide. And I feel like that's the source of intelligence. And I feel like everything that we're about to suggest on how to tap into it, like your intelligence comes from your intuition. That's what you're trying to tap into. And when you tap into your intuition and you follow that, then you're just got kind of be guided. Everything's going to be smooth sailing. You're going to be able to know how to handle challenges as they arise because that is the ultimate source of intelligence. Um, and through meditation and that isolation, that allows you to be able to find that stillness and that quiet to where you can hear your intuition, you can be guided by your intuition, and also be able to better sort out is this my intuition or is this fear? Which is sometimes I have a challenge with that. Like, am I not turning down that road, like that road, because the turn would be too quick and I don't want the person behind me to like feel like I turned too quick, or is my intuition telling me to like, something like that,
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to me, that's been a big thing. Like I feel like being an entrepreneur, you have to tap into that spiritual side. Like you have to be intuitive. Like it's just so many different things and decisions that you have to make to where it's like that's I guess really where it starts to come into play. Like, um, who do you trust in? It's like at the end of the day, I'm a bet on myself. So I gotta ride with the wins and the losses that come with that. But
Hmm.
it's just trying to decipher what those messages are, like what are the signs that you're getting from the universe. And I mean, even before I quit my job, going on 3 years ago, I was getting so many signs to where it was like if I stayed in that job, I probably would have got sick again. Like something
Mm.
crazy would have happened to where it would have been like, no, you're gonna leave the job one way or the other, or I would have got fired, or it would have been some other circumstance that would have played a factor in me getting to this same spot. Like I just feel like certain things are meant to happen, certain things will play out how they're meant to be. Um, so some of the things that you might deem as a loss, it's actually a win because it's gonna transform into something better down the road. Which in my case, had I not gotten sick, like the whole path to self-awareness and all that stuff never would have opened for me. So like that's why I always
Or
lean
would have
back
been
on health.
delayed.
Yeah, or been delayed. So it definitely expedited the process because it put everything in my lap to where it was like, well, if you want a solution to how you're going to cure yourself or how you're going to get better, it's up to you.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. Um, and I think as far as like what you talked about with decision making, I think it's another area where oftentimes as parents, there's a disconnect because they don't give us the opportunity to make decisions and to listen to our emotions and let our intelligence, our emotions guide those decisions, and then we can
Yeah.
then learn the consequences. Like we wait till adulthood, you know, to then crash and burn because all of our lives we've been told to do this, told to do that, and just because we're supposed to do it.
Yeah.
Especially within the Black community, that's another thing. Is like we come, and it goes back to like slavery and all the damage that was done through that, where we had to protect ourselves so much. It was like, no, you sit down, shut up, don't do anything. Same thing with cops. If a cop comes up, sit down, shut up, don't say anything. So much of the decision making is taken away from us. Where our parents, we ask them to do this, they say, no, why can't I do that? Just because I said
Yeah.
so. Well, why? And they get mad at us for asking those
For
why.
asking the questions. Yeah.
Right. And then when we get to adulthood, it was like we don't know what we're doing because we never learn how to make decisions. We never learn how to listen to our intuition and let that guide us in our decision making. When that is
Yeah.
a true source, and we'll talk about religion and stuff, eventually, but we're taught that this our intelligence is this outside source when it truly is within us, and we all have access to it, and we're all there's not this you have to deserve it or become worthy of it. No, it's there for you. You don't have to behave in a certain way in order to receive, that knowledge or, whatever. I'm not gonna go
Yeah.
down my that
And then
religion.
even connecting that back to the isolation piece, like again, I was separating for me, separating from family and friends who think on a think a whole different way than what I was thinking. Like that was a way for me looking back on it to really figure out like, is this really what I want to do? Like really sort out the weeds. Like there's no naysaying, there's nothing. Like it's just me figuring this out. So I think that was a big piece. But then at the same time, like as much as our parents might, I don't want to say restrict us, but like lead us in a certain way or influence us a certain way, they're really doing the best they can at the end of the day.
Hmm.
Like if I'm just thinking back to when I was in high school, had I been more intuitive back then, I know I wouldn't have been in this situation now. But I probably would have tapped into something more creative. Like I used to love to draw, but it got to a point to where it's like, all right, either you got to pick sports or you can pick art. Of course, I'm
Mm,
gonna pick sports because I was a huge sports just fanatic in general. Like even when I got to college, um, they were like, "Oh, you're good at math, you're good at science, you'd be good at pharmacy." So I ended up being pre-farm. Worst decision ever. Like after, I'm not even going to talk about what my high school GPA was, but I've never even seen a C. I get to UF, I'm making C's. I don't know how to study. I never studied in high school.
mhm,
So like I'm getting just drilled. UF murking me right now. So I'm like, bro, I gotta figure out what to do. So this is probably really the first time to where it was like, all right, I gotta start making some decisions. I can't be letting other people influence what's going on with me.
mhm.
So I switched my major. Best move of it saved my college career basically. Like I mean, it was a good move all the way around. Like it just made
Mhm.
me happier. Like it was just something I really wanted to do, and that should really be what it's about. Like it should be what you want to do, what's best for you. Like you
Right.
kind of have to take a selfish approach to it for the betterment of everybody else.
Mhm. And that's funny because like I follow like a similar path where like I started out undergrad at Alabama A&M because I was on a volleyball scholarship. Decided to leave there after my second year because I was like pre-med and I was like, oh, I want to go somewhere where there's a little bit more funding so I can be really competitive. So I go to Georgia State. I'm there. I think I'm in my junior year there, pre-med. And I'm just like, I can't think about what I want to specialize in med school. And I'm like, I guess, I mean, I really don't love Western medicine because I've had these issues and they can never find solutions to them. And
Yeah.
then as the universe works, it put this person in front of me who was talking about research and psychology. And like, I'd taken a psychology course before. However, I was like, what's a soft science? And I don't really know. And I ended up doing some research in this autism research lab and I fell in love with it. And then I decided that like I was going to actually, even though all my life I was going to be a doctor or medical doctor, I decided my junior year that I was going to take some additional courses and apply to grad school to be a psychologist. And like my family did not understand. It was like grad school or med school, like, what is it? Like not even understanding that this type of program is the most competitive program out there. But they didn't understand it. But I had to, even had people telling me like, no, you're making a mistake, go to med school. But I knew even though it was scary and I still wasn't where I am today as far as like my self-awareness and self-confidence, I knew that something like I was like, I'm not going to make this decision. Like this is an important decision and I'm going to do what feels best for me. I'm going to be bold and I'm going to go against the grain and do, what feels best for me. And it was the best decision. If I would have did pre-med, I would have been miserable. I'm like, no, no, I
Yeah.
would not have liked med school. Um, but yeah, so, but yeah, okay. So I don't think I ever talked about my tip. So you said like isolation, self isolation, spending time with yourself, cutting out the distractions. I would say probably I would have to go back to meditation, just because meditation, like some of the pillars of meditation are just this non or mindfulness meditation. So being present and being not judging the present moment, just becoming the observer. So a lot of times with our emotions, the reasons why we shut them down is because we've been taught that this emotion is bad. I shouldn't experience this emotion. But if we can remove that part and just observe the emotion and let it flow as it comes, like just like this little snake that's flowing over my arm. If we just allow our emotions to just flow without us judging them, then we can experience them and take from them what they're trying to deliver, like that information. So I would say just mindfulness meditation and being able to be in a present moment, experience something without having to judge or make sense of it at that moment. Just kind of like letting it, come up. And then also having the compassion and the patience that meditation also teaches, to just sit with stuff and to, let it be experienced. And And I think that self-love and compassion allows me to make mistakes so I can follow. Like, I'm not afraid. Like, nothing is ever a mistake for me. Nothing's ever a failure. Everything is just an experience.
Hmm.
So I can allow myself to follow this emotion. And if it doesn't pan out how I expected, it's like, oh, that's just more knowledge I gain or more experience I gain. On to the next. Let me try it this way. And I can do that in a very non-judgmental way, and I don't get down on myself. So I think like just meditation, giving yourself that space, that stillness, that ability to just observe without judgment has really helped me to understand my emotions and experience them in a healthy way.
Yeah, I would agree. And I mean, I was going to say meditation because I mean, to me, meditation really is just an everyday isolation. Like that's really
Hmm.
you kind of putting yourself in isolation. So at the end of the day, it's really just being able to quiet the external environment. So whether that's you literally taking a physical move or doing something with your body, I mean that could be as simple as you leaving your house and just going to a park by yourself. That could be isolation. I'm not necessarily saying you got to move to another city, but I think when you are isolated, like even in these times where people are quarantined, the meditation and having that practice would make this so much easier. Like, I mean, we kind of talked about it prior to getting on the show, but for me, like, I really feel like I'm experiencing scissors broken clocks. Like, I really don't have a lot of recollection of time most of the time. Like, I remember waking up on Sunday, I really didn't know what day it was. Like, because I popped up and like I've been so busy the past few weeks. Um, or I wouldn't even say really busy, but just consistent. I've been so consistent, like every day doing certain things to where like I popped up and I thought it was a weekday.
Mm.
And now I'm like, oh, it's Sunday. Like I can kind of chill. So like, I don't know. I think it's just being in the moment, which goes back to the meditative space of it. But the more you're present, the more you're able to sort stuff out.
Yeah. And I think, in addition to finding the isolation, another way to gain emotional intelligence is by being around other people so you can experience emotions
That's
with
it.
other people and then notice, okay, I'm reacting, what emotion am I experiencing in relation to this person and why? Is this person triggering, some past, whatever that's causing me to react to them this way? So also, yeah, spending time with people to observe your emotions and how they arise, good and bad, quote unquote. I think that's another important part too.
Yeah, that's the balancing aspect of it. Like you definitely need to be around people so that you can see what you're doing in your alone time is working. Like
Yeah.
you need to figure out that balance. Like I mean, with anything else in life. So of course you're gonna have interactions with people. People are still gonna do certain things that may trigger you, but how do you respond to that? So
Hmm.
um it's building up that practice in your alone time to where when you do get to it, you're ready. Like it's no different than an athlete practicing and then it's game time. So that practice is just your isolation time. Like when you are by yourself, that's the time for you to get better in all aspects, whether you be working out mentally or physically, um, which coincides so well with right now. Like I mean, if the gym was open, I'm already there regardless, but like that's the only thing that's killing me right now because I can't go to the gym. So I just think that these times, like, I mean, instead of trying to figure out what's good on Netflix, like, what can you read that would make you better or
Hmm.
listen to that'll make you better? Like, it's just certain things that you can do to continuously improve yourself without getting too obsessive. Like, of course, you still need your rest and time to just chill, but like, be productive at the same time. Like seek
Yeah.
to get better.
And if you are going to be watching Netflix, use that as an opportunity
Watching something
to.
educational
Well, I
if you
mean,
want
even
to
even
too.
if you're
Yeah.
not, even if you're not watching something educational, you could be watching a show, and if it does evoke an emotion out of you, take time to reflect on that emotion and why. Like,
Yeah, or be
okay,
present with what you're watching too.
yeah, be present with what you're watching, and like, yeah, like, make kill two birds with one stone. Like, actually, yeah, get entertained, but at the same time allow yourself to be present and experience the emotions. And that's another part about emotional intelligence, is being empathic, being an empath, so being able to understand the emotions and experience of other people. um that's also really important too. That's another important aspect too. So if you are me watching TV, you know allow yourself to be present and to experience the emotions, and pay attention to those reactions you're having, so that way you can gain whatever information from that, that you need.
So that kind of goes back to the self-awareness piece, but even with the music, like it's going to be certain things in the movie that might trigger you. Depending on the type of movie you're watching, it can make you sad or it can make you mad. And no different than a song. Like if you're somebody who like you've been depressed lately, let's just say you've been depressed, and then you're listening to Neo, I'm so sick of love songs, you're making yourself more depressed. Like that's lacking emotional intelligence. Like you're putting yourself in that type of hole. Flip the script, like do something different. So I'm not knocking anybody who's trying to just have a good time and watch whatever on Netflix. When I say watch something educational, that was me simply saying flip the script, like just do something different, do something out of your norm. And I
Hmm.
think really at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to, is pushing your levels of comfort, getting out of
Yep.
your comfort zone, getting out of that box, doing something different. Um, just constantly challenging yourself. Like, I mean, if you're here,
That's a guiding grace. Like, if like I literally, whenever I feel uncomfortable, I'm like, okay, this is where I need to be. Like,
yeah,
because I know on the other side of that, on that discomfort is like, because the thing is, like, when you think about it, when you're uncomfortable, you normally stop there. So you're not getting to that whole other world of experience on the other side of that. So whenever I feel discomfort nowadays, I'm like, okay, all right, now let's go. Let's take that
yeah.
other step.
It's like, what's next?
Yep.
Yeah. I don't know. I've definitely grown comfortable with being uncomfortable. Like especially in the past 3 years, like it's it, the life of an entrepreneur. I take my hats off to everybody who's ever built a company and done it successfully and all that stuff. Like it's so many different things that go into that. It's just commendable. So it's so much more than what's seen on the outside, but just the mental toughness of those people, hat goes off.
Hmm. And I would say another tip, I know you kind of touched on the gym, is that in order for you to do anything related to improving your mind, anything, you have to also realize that what you do with your body affects your mind. So finding some way to be physically active, and monitoring what you're consuming, both visually, what you're listening to, and what you're eating. Like all these things, all of what you're putting into and doing with your body are going to affect the way your brain's ability to be able to think clear enough to process your emotions. And at the same time, while you're training your brain to be more efficient and noticing, okay, what am I thinking? How am I feeling? Okay, let me correct that and get to a positive state. Your ability to do that and make that a habit of thinking, requires you to be putting in good nutrients. So through working out and through eating right.
Yeah, I was gonna say, remember your gut is your second brain. So the quality of food that you're putting in your body is gonna contribute to the thoughts that you're producing.
Mm-hmm.
So like if you're putting in excessive amounts of sugar, you're gonna be more jittery, or you might be a little bit more wound up than if you just had some fruit. So
Yep.
that's one of those things where I think as you become more self-aware, you'll see how food is affecting you. And I know for me and my own experiences, it took me to do um, meditating and doing yoga and certain things to figure out, like, wow, all right, I just had pizza. I feel like trash. I'm about to go take a nap. Like I immediately got the itis. Like now my food's just sitting on me for the next 3 days, whatever.
Right.
Started giving me those pieces of insight. And then it's like, all right, on the flip side, when I'm only consuming, uh, let's say, fruit, veggies, I'm energized. There's never any itis, and food's digesting like it should.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're having these proper bowel movements. Like you're good. So I think you start to see things from a different spectrum, and it's like, wow, I've been doing things one way, and there's a whole different side to it. How much better can it get? So I think that's kind of like where I've been, to where you're put here, I feel like, on earth to experience the best of the best. So why not strive for that? And then, if I mean, it's one thing if you don't have the perspective and the wherewithal to do so, but if you know better, you do better.
Right. And that again comes down to the world we live in, at least especially in the US, is designed to keep us from tapping into our emotional intelligence. And one of the primary vehicles they do that through is by keeping us so sick that we can't think clear enough, especially through our food, through the toxic foods that we're fed here,
Yeah,
where
you
a
don't
lot,
even know you feel bad.
right? Because you get so used to it. It's like you get so used to feeling like crap that
That you think the itis is normal.
yeah, it's like, oh, it's like
Like,
you're supposed to get after Thanksgiving dinner,
yeah.
you're supposed to be in pain and just lay
Yeah,
down
we're
and
supposed to go to take a nap
sleepy.
after we eat.
Right,
No, that's not it at
right,
all. Like,
right.
you're literally putting yourself in a slow death. Like, that's the
Yeah,
complete opposite of what you should be doing.
yeah. And I think that's like some of the challenges of getting to the level that you and I are at. It took something for us to be like, okay, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. I'm going to make this change, because when I try to talk to people about it now, it's so hard for people from our community to want to, put down the mac and cheese and the corn casserole and fried chicken in order to have a bet to feel healthier, to, everything. It's like, to me just like I value feeling well, because I understand the value in feeling well. I understand the more well I feel, the more I can create a better life for myself and for my family. So why would I not, like, the true sacrifice is, oh, not the fact that I don't get to eat fried chicken. The sacrifice is eating that fried chicken and missing out on the beautiful life that you could create had you
Oh
had the
man,
energy and the wellness to be able to do that.
that's I couldn't have said it better. I mean, I know what eating dairy will do to me. Like, I know if I eat gluten, what it's gonna do to me. So it's not worth it. Like you said, I value feeling good. I know how it feels to feel bad, the worst levels of bad. So I'm like, nah, I like it on this side. If I know that's gonna trigger something, I'm not about to, not I'm not doing it intentionally. So um I think I said it even in the last episode, and I might say it every episode, but I challenge you to feel good. Cause I know a lot of people don't know what it feels like to actually feel good. Especially from an eating perspective and a diet perspective. Like, I mean, I just said even about the itis piece, but like, truly eat a full meal. Like, y'all should see how much I eat. And I'm so energized after that meal that where you're like, how are you not going to sleep? My mom will sit there and watch me eat like a whole jar of like cashews and just be in amaze. And I'm like, I'm good, but it's eating healthy things. Like, it's eating things that are gonna fuel you at the same time.
Yep. Okay, so we touched on getting in stillness and silence, by spending time with yourself, meditation, being present and mindful, actually being around other people so you could reflect and observe your emotions in those contexts, as well as eating right and exercising your body. Obviously, doing all these things in moderation and balance. If you are going to start on this journey, definitely set small goals for yourself. Just because it's not, and even me, like there's times where I will have a slice of pizza, but it's not my primary diet. My primary diet is fruits and vegetables, just because I know I feel my best. Like even today, I went to this place. I almost ordered some grilled salmon. Then I was like, if I just get the grilled veggies, I'm gonna feel lighter than I will if I get the grilled salmon. And I like
Mhm.
the feeling of lightness, because that feeling to me I associate with mental clarity and like energy. I'm not heavy and like kind of weighed down. Um, so yeah, any other tips you have, Blair, for emotional intelligence, cultivating more intelligence? Or even, I would say, let's think outside of that too. So let's think about tips to just becoming more in touch with your emotions. Any like activities you've done that helped you to experience your emotions, or to be okay with the emotions that you have experienced.
Mm,
What about therapy? Have you ever done therapy?
I, I've not like a true therapy session. Like I've done a couple with like energy healers,
Mm-hmm.
but like kind of like a one-off session, like maybe 15 minutes where they ask a few questions here and
Wait, so
there.
that too. So how did you know? How could you sense that you needed an energy healer?
I I was just trying different things, to be honest. Like it'd be dark times, just even from a mental perspective, where I didn't even feel like myself. So I guess more of like a depressive state.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, all right, let me figure out if there's something subconsciously holding me back. Like consciously, I feel like I'm aware of what I can be aware of, but like it's got to be something deeper than this. So that's where I started seeking out like these different healers and these different techniques, and it revealed a lot. Like um, one thing I didn't know, but each person has at least 4 lines of DNA in them. Like
Hmm.
the lineage goes back at least 4 grandparents. So knowing that you're taking in those same traumas and everything that your grandparents went through, so you could be suffering from something, or something could be holding you back subconsciously that they went through and you have no idea about. Like, you might not be manifesting something, and you're like, I'm doing everything I need to for this to happen. What is going on? And that's
Mm-hmm.
kind of what it got to for me. So I was trying to manifest something specific, and it just wasn't happening. So I'm like, it's got to be something deeper, because I'm doing everything that I know. Go to these healers, and it's like, yeah, it's definitely something karmic in your timeline. So that's another conversation for another day. But
Mm-hmm.
um, just for me, knowing intuitively, like it's something more, is what led me to do all that.
I think so I've done like sound bowl healing, um and I've done like breath work, and those two were just because I sense like I'm doing like all these healthy lifestyle practices, but I'm still experiencing chronic pain. I'm still experiencing fatigue. There's got to be something energetically that is still weighing on me that I need to clear out. So that's why I did some of those things, and why I got into yoga as well. But another thing that definitely has been helpful for me has been, traditional therapy, psychotherapy. I saw a hypnotherapist before. That was a really awesome experience, just because in hypnotherapy, you're working more in your subconscious mind. So you have your conscious mind, which is like what we're using now to have this conversation. And then you have your subconscious mind, which is kind of like some of that ancestral stuff, your own past experience, things that are kind of working on a level that you might not be super aware of if you're not, very self-aware. So in hypnotherapy, he puts me in a state of like almost like a meditative state that allows us to go down into my more subconscious mind and work there more at the roots of your thoughts and stuff like that. So that was really helpful. And journaling too. Journaling has been helpful for
Mm,
me. Just kind of writing
forgot
down,
about that one. That's a great
yeah,
one.
yeah,
Yeah.
writing down how I feel. Because even me as a therapist, I realized I had a hard time expressing my emotions. And I think part of that was because, one, growing up, I was so focused on pleasing other people. And I was kind of just so easy to go with the flow that I never really learned who I was and how I felt about things. I couldn't tell, like, am I doing this because I really want to do it, or because I feel
Right.
like somebody would like me to do this? So journaling and therapy helped me to become more aware of what I truly wanted, and how I truly felt about stuff. Um, what else?
Yeah,
Yeah, I think.
journaling is a good one. I forgot all about that, but being able to write is liberating for sure.
And even go back and like read. Like I have like so many journals now. Like to go back and read just like because you were in a different mind state back then, so it's so valuable to journal. Yeah, for sure.
S-
Let's see. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, so with you practicing more self-awareness types of techniques and practices, where do you feel like you are right now?
So as
Like,
far as like where I am now on my self-awareness or emotional intelligence journey, I'm in a place to where I'm aware enough that I'm more predominantly operating in an adaptive way. I definitely still have situations where I will let um, anxiety creep up, or that I'll notice that my guard starts to come up, and I'll have to just like take a breath and come to the present moment so that way I can like get past that guard that's coming up. So I'm definitely on the other end of it, but I definitely still have work to do in because the thing for me is sometimes when like I would be trying to express my needs, especially to like um, a lover or somebody like that, that guard will come up to where it almost as if I forget what I need, because like that's
yeah,
my protective. It's like if you express what you want, you're not going to get what you want. So then that guard comes up and it makes me like kind of start to forget. So that still somewhat happens. And now I just consciously, whenever I think about something I need, I know that I'm worthy of receiving it, and I know I can have whatever I want. So then that mental block doesn't come up as much, or like I can more quickly override it just because I have that level of awareness.
got you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree. I'm definitely on the other side of it, but it's something I still work at, especially with, um, I guess, a significant other, like somebody who you would deem as that. But yeah, it's. I think it's an evolving process every day. Like it's just
Hmm.
really trying to figure out and heal from those past traumas and like those different things that might have held you back in the past. Um, and I mean, I've definitely been somebody who can be guarded. I don't open up easy, so I'm aware of that, and I think having awareness of little things that could be a trigger for somebody else is huge. So at least if I know up front, like, hey, or if I tell you up front, like, be patient. I really mean be patient. Like,
Hmm.
it's coming from a sincere place. Like, it's nothing about you. It's me. So I think if more people were self-aware and we could actually communicate that with each other, I think it would be a lot smoother for just
Let's
dating
say
in general.
let's say you're in a relationship with someone, and you do have that higher level of self-awareness. You can see where they're kind of lacking. What are there certain things you would do to kind of help that person gain self-awareness aside from like meditation, but in how you interact with that person? Would there be certain things you would do to help kind of cultivate or model that for them?
Nothing in particular. For me, honestly, like with anything, like I just try to be myself. So
Hmm.
and lead by example. So like if somebody sees me doing something and hopefully, I mean, with anything, like it would inspire or help them at the end of the day. But I can't say I would like pinpoint something specific. Like I'm getting to the point to where like I understand everybody has their own journey. So like the people who truly want to ask questions or want to know certain things, like they'll come to me and ask. Like I try
Yeah.
not to
That, and I think that's the
influence
important
stuff.
part is that's actually an active thing that you do, is that you don't try to force things on people. Like you can see somebody has this area where they need to grow. However, you give them the space to experience what they need to experience for them then to then use their own intelligence and listen to it to be like, okay, well, let me actually ask Blair, or let me actually seek some help, or let me follow these strategies that Blair is doing. Because I feel like that's a very important part, is being guided to that on your own versus someone trying to teach you and force something down your throat. The part of that intelligence is noticing, okay, I have this area of growth I need. I see this person doing something that looks like it's helpful for them. Let me then, start to watch what they're doing and So I think just like, creating that space for someone to experience their emotions. And then at that point, if they then ask you, how can I experience this emotion in a certain way or do whatever, then that's when we could step in and, give that support.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think even with 3 layers of wellness, like I just put out information. So hopefully you benefit from it. But um, I'm definitely not trying to just be force feeding stuff to people. Like I literally just put it out as a tool. And I tell people, use me as a tool and a resource. Like I'm somebody who doesn't mind research and stuff, and I'm not gonna just take stuff as status quo. So I'm gonna question it,
Hmm.
and even what we're telling you, question it.
Yeah.
Like look up stuff on your own. Do these different. Just because it works for me, it doesn't mean it's gonna work for you. So I would always encourage people to do their own trials and experiments with whatever, but just see if the stuff works. It's literally just being put out as a tool for you.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. Definitely. You know, I look at my life, I'm like this little investigator, and I've always been a curious person. I feel like that's like one of the traits of people who do start to, get on that conscious path is like they're just naturally curious. They start questioning
For
things.
sure.
Um, so yeah, I'm just like an investigator. I'm willing to experiment with this life. That's what you came here to do, was to play in this rich world that we have, to play, experiment, to learn and grow. um but I think at some point in time we started to believe that we're supposed to come here and be perfect at everything, and then that leads us to staying in these little safe predetermined paths that no one's happy in.
Yeah,
um so yeah, so yeah. um, let's see. Anything else? I mean, we covered the issue, why, not why lacking emotional intelligence is an issue, especially among Black men, and how that affects our relationships. We've covered some of the causes as well as some of our solutions. Anything else that you feel like we could touch on?
I think we gave the people enough on emotional intelligence.
All right. So y'all probably tired of hearing that term now. But if you guys have any questions or suggestions about your own path, anything that you've done to cultivate more emotional intelligence in your life, or if you have any questions on for us, feel free to DM us on our social media, or drop comments in the comment section, whatever, or leave a voicemail on the audio, um, on the podcast platforms, because we are here for you. We want to be able to answer whatever questions you guys do have. And yeah.
For sure. Definitely would love to connect with you guys. If you can see in our backgrounds, we have our handles. You can reach me at 3 Layers of Wellness. And then I also have my apparel company, Bonafide FLA. But just reach out to me direct and we can get it going.
Cool, cool, cool. And my Instagram is at Makita Smiles. I also have my Slick logo on there. I'm a Slick brand ambassador. You can find us at Slick Relax Fit. And again, I'm open to receiving any questions, any way we can help support you in your path to your greater self. That's what we are here. That's what we are about. And I think that's a wrap. A wrap for episode 2. I hope you
Hey,
guys enjoyed this episode, and feel definitely, like, subscribe, and share, and continue to tap back in with us. We got a lot of good stuff headed your way.
for sure. We'll continue to get better. But thanks for tuning in, and we will see you guys next week.
All right. Peace and
All right.
love.
Peace.
Thank you for tuning into the Parallel Paths podcast. For essentials and contact info, you can find all that in the show notes. Make sure you leave us a review, share, and subscribe if you have not already done so. We appreciate all of the love and support, family. Until next time, peace.